Hi, folks. Welcome to Art of the City. I'm Ruth-Ann, your host today on this glorious Tuesday, and I'm live streaming from San Diego, California. We are very excited because this week has just turned into a music week. We have musicians that are probably some of the greatest legends of our time live streaming from this show. And we have one in particular today that I'm extremely excited about. But before I get into that, I just want to invite you to invite your friends. So if you're watching our live stream now, you can just simply on your Facebook page, hit share, and it will go right to your page and all your friends can watch. So I encourage you to do that because we really are wanting to share the awareness of the great artists and great creatives of our time. That's how Art of the City started. So we started, I'm an art dealer, as many of you know, I've been doing that for a really long time. But within art, there's a lot of different aspects of art, within that umbrella. So you've got music and dance and the culinary arts, and of course, painting and sculpture and graffiti, all different types of things. So that's one of the things that I'm very proud about, that the show has expanded to bring in all of these creatives. Some of the genres I'm very familiar with, especially when it comes to the visual arts. But when it comes to other art forms, although, I love music, love to eat, so no problem there. But I'm learning along with you folks about some of these great legends. Today, I have an incredible artist coming on. This gentleman has spent 4 decades honing his craft as a great American musician and songwriter. This is Danny O'Keefe. And I've been really fortunate that I was introduced to Danny through a dear friend of mine, Michael Jensen. Michael, if you're watching, hi, Michael. And it's always a pleasure of mine to be introduced to these great artists and then do a little bit of research and find out, wow, they've really impacted the world. So let's see if we can get this great legend on our show today. And just give us a second.
There he is.
Hi, Danny.
Hi, Ruth-Ann.
Welcome to the show. Welcome to Art of the City. How are you?
I'm good. Beautiful day up here.
All right. So tell the folks where you're streaming from.
I'm up in the Northwest on an island near Seattle. Lived here for about 40 years. Very nice. Quiet until all the airplanes fly over at 5 o'clock. But it's a nice place.
So since the COVID happened, has it changed your life very much since you are on that beautiful island?
Well, the great thing about the island is that there haven't been very many cases. I think 40 people tested and one person went to the hospital. No one's died. So it's been fairly quiet, and that's good. You can only get on the island by ferry boat, so if we have to, we'll stand there on the shore and fight them off. But
that's what they're doing in Hawaii as well. So maybe they followed your lead on that. So that's really nice. In California, we're not as fortunate because we've really had to take some pretty severe measures and shutdowns and all of those things. Are you guys wearing masks and doing all of that protocol when you go to the market and that type of thing?
Absolutely. I wear a mask. I carry a little flask of disinfectant.
Nice.
You never know where it will come from, so you ought to be safe, as safe as you can possibly be, and even then there's risk.
Well, I too carry a flask, but it has nothing to do with disinfectant for my hands. That I have in the car. No, I'm just kidding. So Danny, share a little bit about your music career. You have really had such a rich career and have blessed so many people with your talent. How did it begin?
The music part of it began in Seattle in the mid-'60s. A friend of mine who had been was the major concert promoter in Seattle was an old friend of mine, and he introduced me to a guy named Jerry Denon, who was had a record company, and he had put out the Kingsman's version of Louie Louie. So he had distribution, he was prominently known. And I just, started going into his studio and putting down demos. And, at one point I put down Good Time Charlie's Got the Blues, and, little dollar signs went off in his eyes. And he did his best to see if he could get it into somebody's hands that could do it justice, and didn't manage to. And over the period of a year or so, that was probably in '67. So by '68, I'd gone down to LA and kind of tried to figure out what was the music business, the real music business. And I had friends that were in bands down there. And at one point, friend had been managed by Charlie Green of Green and Stone, and they had Sonny and Cher and Dr. John and Buffalo Springfield. I don't know, just a bunch of acts, that all had done very well. Iron Butterfly was another act of theirs, and most of their acts had been on Atlantic. So we were hanging out with Charlie one late afternoon around 5 o'clock, and he was on the phone with somebody. And he just kind of motioned to me, get your guitar out. And he said, Ahmet, I want you to hear this kid. He wrote a song for you. And I had not written a song for Charlie, but God bless him, he can claim it. So I got on the phone, and I didn't really know who Ahmet Ertegun was, but that was who was on the other end. And I played Good Time Charlie's Got the Blues and Steel Guitar, another song, and gave the phone back to Charlie, and as far as I knew, that was it. Next day, Ahmet came with a couple of people. One, I think, was David Geffen. I'm not sure who the other one was. And we were pretending that we were a band. So we had, the AirSats band members there. And I played him the same couple songs. And he motioned to Charlie that we had a deal. And as it worked out, we didn't really have one because the band wasn't a band and fell apart.
Okay.
And I went back to Seattle. And after, 6 weeks or so, I had no money, I had no prospects. And I just cold called Ahmet on the phone. And Noreen, his secretary, answered and said, okay, just a minute. And she evidently talked to Ahmet. Ahmet got on the phone and we talked, and said, send me some demos. And I said, okay, great. And all I had in those days, this is, 60s, late 60s, I had a little Webcore recorder. That was all there was, right? It's a tape recorder.
Right.
Mono. So I just sat on a chair and recorded my songs into that and sent the tape off to Ahmet, and didn't hear anything. So I called back in a couple of weeks and he got right on the phone again, which is such an unusual thing. I mean, he was a giant of the industry, and he, ran Atlantic Records with Jerry Wexler, and he just was a gracious human being. And he said, I didn't hear much on that tape. I said, you heard Good Time Charlie's Got the Blues and Steel Guitar, the same two songs I played for you into the phone at Charlie Green's. And he asked his assistant, and the assistant said, yeah, that's right. He said, oh, well, what do you want to do? I want to go make a record. He said, all right, I'll send you the tickets. How you doing for money? And I said, I don't have any money. He said, okay, I'll send you some money. And we went to Muscle Shoals on Woodstock weekend. What a perfect time to be there. And we cut, 6 tracks or so. And we were off and running. I mean, the first record wasn't very successful, but Ahmet turned me over to Arif Mardin, and he was an arranger and a wonderful musician, plus a wonderful human being. And we went to Memphis and cut a hit.
Wow. What a great story. That must have been such an incredible time to be be your age and experience all of that energy that was happening in the 60s. I mean, you probably can close your eyes and remember what that felt like.
A lot of it's a blur. Um, they
That's
say if
that's
you,
a that's a great story. And then from there, you had that big hit, which pretty much, put you right in the limelight. What did you do after that? Did you start touring?
I toured a little bit. I wasn't very successful at it. I mean, I hadn't really had bands before. I'd always been just a songwriter, played solo whenever I played out.
Okay.
So, I mean, we'd go out and do 6-week tours to support the record and then come back and figure out what the next record was. And the next record was an album called Breezy Stories. And that was a very interesting experience because we cut it in New York. And there were wonderful players, Donny Hathaway and Bernard Purdy and Gordon Edwards and Hugh McCracken. And I mean, just, really A-list players in New York and all really nice people. So that was an extraordinary experience and a huge learning experience for me.
How old were you around that time?
Oh, I think I was probably 25, 26, somewhere in there.
Wow, that's impressive. I mean, what a great opportunity to be able to, start your career with those great talents and learn from them and then expand. So this has been going on 4 decades that you've been creating music and writing music, and you're still out there creating. I know you've got a new album coming up.
Yes, Looking Glass and the Dreamers.
That's really exciting. We're going to throw that up on the screen so the folks can see it. And we're going to attempt to do that so that people can see. So there you go, folks. So share a little bit about this project.
I've been working on this project since 1968 when the
Wow.
lines to the song Looking Glass came to me. And I was flown down to LA. I'm not sure of what time of year it was. I don't remember that much of it. But a man by the name of Terry Melcher, excuse me, who had produced the Byrds' first record and produced the Beach Boys' first record, and he was a hot producer. And Columbia Records wanted to give him his own label because they thought that he was the man of the moment. So they flew me down there to basically audition for him, and I put me up in a hotel in Westwood, and they would come and get me periodically and take me to a party or someplace, and probably just to see if I could mingle, which I'm not a good mingler.
That's great.
So in the hotel, I was trying to write a song using the ideas or something if I could glean from Alice Through the Looking Glass. I did not know who Looking Glass, the Nez Perce Native American, was, and I fell into a sleep and a dream and woke up out of the dream with Looking Glass in Oregon. One night had a dream of soldiers slowly riding in a solemn, endless stream. Excuse me. And I didn't know who Looking Glass was. I didn't know anything about the Nez Perce, in fact.
Okay.
Maybe a reference at some point to Chief Joseph, but I knew nothing about them as a people. And when I got back home, I asked somebody if they'd ever heard of somebody named Looking Glass. And he said, oh, yeah, he was a war chief for the Nez Perce in 1876. And that
Wow.
started me on a journey. And the first song was Looking Glass. There's Looking Glass right now. He was a buffalo hunter. He was a warrior. He was a very interesting man. He made a couple critical mistakes during the war. That if he hadn't made them, the Nez Perce might have gotten to Canada and had been safe. They didn't.
Wow.
So over this long period of time, I've written songs, kind of, folded them into a long piece, which is what Looking Glass and the Dreamers is. And it just took me a long time to feel that I had all the pieces and I had them right, or as right as I could get them. And I think they're there now. Gary Ogan co-produced with me, and he's a native, and he had a lot of wonderful musical ideas that really made the arrangements pop alive. I'm gonna have a
So
little.
you started this in 1968, this project?
I did.
Wow, you must be quite the perfectionist.
Well, when you're writing about another people, and especially a Native American people that were grossly wronged, gravely wronged, you have to be careful. Um, they're very proud people, very sensitive, and you want to honor them. So you better get your facts at least as right as you can.
Well, as a Native person, I find that to be so refreshing and so touching that you would take that amount of time to properly represent, we call it the original Americans here on
Yes.
this land.
Well, and also
It
the Nez Perce have been in that tri-corner state area, tri-state area of Oregon, Idaho, and Washington. They've been there for at least 16,000 years.
yes.
So, I mean, that's kind of unimaginable to, uh, the immigrant that, this is their land. And they've lived there continuously from that period on. Developed an amazing culture, developed unique breeds of horses, the Appaloosas. Um, they're most interesting people.
It is true. And we've been this whole month, I don't know if you knew this, but we had dedicated the month of August to Native American creatives. And so this really is a beautiful dovetail into that because it is such an important issue, and especially right now with a lot of the tribes really fighting to get their tribal lands back that have been taken. And there's been a lot of headway made in Indian country with that. So this is really, blesses my heart to hear you say what you're saying. So I love that.
Well, in the war against the indigenous peoples continues to this day. If the reservations have any natural resources, this government in particularly looks to probably abrogate treaties in order to get those resources. Um, it's still a very difficult time for Native Americans.
It really is. And a lot of people don't know that, a lot of people think, oh, if you're Native American, you get everything supplied. And there's actually very little truth to that. There are some natives that are doing pretty well, but those are the tribes that have been fortunate enough to have casinos and have gaming. There are a few others that got to be lucky to be on land that they discovered oil and other resources, but the vast majority of Native Americans are still living below the poverty line and still very much dependent on those boxes that come from the government. So I appreciate you expressing, the fact that you really have done some research and you're aware of that. So I appreciate that. But I don't want to get into that. I want to get back into your music.
Yes. Well, how shall we?
Okay. Would you like to play us a song?
I'll play you a song from the new album. One of the most famous of the Nez Perce, who was also in the War of 1876, was a man named, uh, is we know him as Jackson Sundown. Um, yeah, Yana Thanatos Khan is as close as I can get to his actual name. Blanket of the Sun.
Okay.
And he was he wrangled horses during the war. He was a nephew of Chief Joseph's. And when he finally was able to come back from Canada, he escaped to Canada. And he became one of the most famous riders in the Northwest. And Pendleton Roundup is a very famous rodeo, one of the oldest. And he competed in Pendleton Roundup. And in 1916, he won an all-around champion rider world championship. And this song is celebration of him. I think you have a picture of him in that ride.
Okay, let's see if we can bring that up.
From the Cascades to the Rockies, old timers spoke with pride of Pendleton in 16 and Jackson Sundown tried. He'd seen in half a century more life than most men dream. Through all the pain and sorrow, his face remained serene. He always rode to win, never left it up to chance. He knew he had the medicine to make a wild horse dance. In the long-haired chaps and moccasins, braids and a cowboy hat, he knew he was up there to stay, by the way he said. We called him Jackson Sundown. To his people he was blanket of the sun. He was there with Chief Joseph when the blue coats made him run. And he rode for all the dreamers and for all the dreams that died. When he came down to the roundup one last time, to show how the Indians could ride. You're a bronc called Angel, a cold black horse from hell. He knew this one could be the one to take him to the well. Angel jackknifed and pitched, sunfished and whirled, but the man who spurred him on was the champion of the world. We call him Jackson Sundown. To his people he was blanket of the sun. He was there with Chief Joseph when the blue coats made him run. And he rode for all the dreamers and for all the dreams that died. When he came down to the roundup one last time, to show him how the Indians could ride. We work our herds of cattle, one thing we'll never know, the thunder on the plains when they hunted the buffalo. If you never pick 'em out by the color of his hide, never judge a cowboy if he's shown you what's inside. We call him Jackson Sundown. To his people he was blanket of the sun. He was there with Chief Joseph when the blue coats made him run. And he rode for all the dreamers and for all the dreams that died. When he came down to the roundup one last time to show 'em how the Indians could ride. And he rode for all the dreamers and for all the dreams that died. When he came down to the roundup one last time to show 'em how the Indians could ride, how the Nez Perce Indians could ride.
That is beautiful, Danny. Wow. I'm kind of takes my breath away. Really, really beautiful. You have an absolutely beautiful voice, by the way. You know, I could listen to that tune over and over again and probably pull something different out of it every time. And I really love the thoughts that what you're speaking about resonates really deeply with me as a Native person. So thank you so much for taking the time to create that masterpiece. Beautiful.
Thank you.
So if people want to, when is the release going to be so that we can support your music and enjoy that tune?
Great. If you go to DannyO'Keefe.com, my site, there are some of the songs up there that they can preview, listen to. Certainly can buy the CD on a pre-sale basis. It's going to be released on the 25th of September. And we hope that people will appreciate it, buy it, learn more about the Nez Perce from it. Who knows?
We certainly will do that. What is this is the conclusion from a project starting in the 60s. What's on the horizon? What do you have coming up next?
Well, next, it's hard to know when next is, but I have more than 30 new and unrecorded songs.
Wow.
That I'd like to, make as acoustically. I mean, I started as an acoustic performer. I'd kind of like to make a record that was primarily acoustic. So maybe that's the next project. It's hard to know because a lot of times the audience is who tells you what the next project is.
And have you been doing any live streaming shows from home?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
I'm not real fond of them. I know people are desperate, to make a little money and, keep their name and talent alive in this pandemic time. But I haven't done it. I don't know that I will or I won't. There is a concert show from a year or so ago called Tales from the Tavern that's up on my Facebook site.
Okay.
So people can see how I, what I do, how I perform, but just, these are hard,
Yeah, and it's limited. I mean, you sounded amazing, by the way. I don't know what you did on your end because sometimes the technology is a little challenging. And that's, I think, with the live streaming, but, recording and putting things up on YouTube, that's probably a little bit easier. But I think it's so wonderful that you're creating, you have all this creativity locked up. You've got 30 new songs you want to bring. Wow, that's super impressive. So we're going to be, folks, when you get a chance, go on and follow Danny. Are you also on Instagram, Danny?
I have an Instagram account, but to be honest with you, I'm never there. I'm not a tweeter. Facebook is about as much as I can do at this point. I'm still writing and still playing, and to spend too much time, in social media just takes away from that.
I agree. Well, social media can become a full-time thing anyway, and I'm right there with you that I do enough, but I don't want to have that become my only outlet. But folks, follow Danny on his Facebook page so that you can, one, support this great talent and be blessed by his music, but also leave him a comment and let him know what you thought about today's show, because I personally have been very touched, very blessed, and also just, I think it's so great that I'm getting exposed to your music because you are such a great talent. It makes me want to listen to more of it, which is what it's all about.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for being on the show today, taking the time. We really appreciate it. And I'm hoping that as you release those next new songs that you'll be able to come back on. You'll have the time to do that. We'd sure love to have you back.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it, Ruth-Ann. I had a good time today. Thank you.
All right, Danny. Well, be blessed, my friend. Be well and keep all of the COVIDs off the island. I know you will do that.
Get to Yao. Thank you.
Exactly. Okay, I'll see you again. Be well. Okay, folks, so what another great talent. And even though Danny is not Native American, and I just had this opportunity to bring him on the show, and I thought, oh my gosh, we can't miss it. We're going to squeeze him in anyway. Who knew? Who knew that his the song that he had that has taken him, my gosh, 40 years to complete, and that's all about Native American culture. So, you know, I always say Spirit knows what we're doing more than we do. And with that said, we have some other great talents coming on. Tomorrow we have a group that is, and I want to make sure that I say the name of the group the right way. It's C. Hassan. And they have been traveling all over Indian country. They are live streaming out of Arizona. So we're going to be really excited to see. This is a Dene tribe, otherwise known as Navajo. So they'll be on the show tomorrow, 4 p.m. Then on Thursday, we're going to have a little bit later show. So that show is going to stream at 7 p.m. Another great musician, Joel Raphael. And then we're going to finish it out back to what I'm known for, which is art with Frank Buffalo Hyde, who is live streaming out of Albuquerque. So make sure you stay tuned. Again, if you haven't had a chance to see all of the recordings, go on to YouTube, Art of the City TV. We have them all there, and we continue to populate even this week. So we'll see you tomorrow, folks, 4 p.m., Art of the City. Have a great evening, and I'll see you soon.